Hello and welcome to The Point. I'm Marcel Wieder, coming to you from our studio in downtown Toronto. Has the government gone too far with new proposed legislation designed to fight terrorism? We'll discuss this with Trinity Spadina MP Adam Vaughan. And it's just been over 100 days since John Tory took over as Mayor of Toronto. To review what's happened, we're joined by now City Hall reporter Ben Spur. All this and more on this edition of The Point. The Conservative government has proposed a bill that would extend authorities' powers to spy on and detain Canadians suspected of participating and supporting terrorist activities. Civil liberties advocates say these measures go too far and put Canadians' freedom and privacy at risk. During recent hearings in Ottawa, the Tories blocked the Privacy Commissioner from appearing in front of the standing committee studying the bill. To discuss this, we're joined by Toronto MP Adam Vaughan, who is a former reporter and city councillor before being elected MP for Trinity Spadina in last June's by-election. We're joined by Trinity Spadina MP Adam Vaughan. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So remember, Canadians are concerned about what's happening both internationally and domestically. The government has brought in some new legislation, and we recently saw a Conservative MP post on Facebook an ad that actually had footage from a terrorist group, and they're trying to get Canadians to sign a petition and to support the government's plan, even though it's their own legislation.
It's interesting times in Ottawa, and I think that the behavior of the MP, and he's not alone in this. I think a number of members of the government are doing it. I hate to use it's hard not to use language which makes you uncomfortable. Taking advantage of a terrible situation internationally that's had some very serious implications and some very tragic events in Canada, but taking advantage of it and both stimulating fear and then trying to profit from that fear by fundraising off of it. It's peculiar behavior. It is a serious issue and it should be dealt with seriously. But using terrorism to both scare Canadians and as a catalyst to raise money for political parties. And some of the other behavior, sort of targeting and stigmatizing good Canadian citizens, all of it begins to I think, create a very disturbing pattern. So, yes, we're in difficult circumstances. Yes, we have to make some tough decisions, but it should not be seen as an opportunity. I think Canadians are rightfully appalled by that kind of behavior.
Now, you just mentioned that the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party are working on a campaign of fear amongst Canadians. What's the reaction been in your community to this type of effort?
Well, I represent a very diverse community. Downtown Toronto, is home to families from all over the globe, and as a result, our perspective on these issues is fairly highly developed. As a result, we've come from places, many of us, that have had difficult moments like this, and we know a couple of things. We know that you need to strike a balance between public safety and the public's right to civil liberties. That it's not an either-or equation. That you need to be able to do both, and I think the public is prepared to have a mature conversation about it. What they don't like is the way fear is being used to both compose the balance, but also to sort of motivate a political base. And I think that they are rightfully shying away from that conversation, and are more focused on actually trying to build a Canada that works.
So what is the Liberals' position on dealing with the threat that we're facing?
Well, the Liberals have been in this position before. We were in government after 9/11, and also were the government that took responsibility for the Air India inquiry and worked very hard to implement some of the recommendations on that. We understand the need to build and to evolve preventive detention, especially in an age when the internet has been used to trigger people to do some very, very serious things that cause a lot of damage to people and have caused 2 deaths in this country. We know that has has to happen. But we also know that we need preventative measures. You know, the extremists who are radicalizing individuals primarily through the internet, they trigger events that happen very quickly. And so you've got to, it's one thing to respond, and we need to have the capacity to do that, and we need resources if you're going to do that properly. And the RCMP have not received the funding they need to adequately respond to some of these threats. But the real issue here is preventing them from the beginning. It's you know, the government criticized Justin Trudeau when he talked about getting at root causes as a way of preventing some of the tragedies. The reality is that getting at root causes is exactly what we need to be doing in terms of turning people away from their computers, turning them away from making some very, very bad decisions that have dangerous implications. We need to prevent these things as much as we need to be able to stop them, because it's a lot cheaper to prevent them, and at the end of the day, it's a lot healthier to stop them than it is to have to endure them. And so those are some of the things that we have to focus on. Yes, we need to build on things like the no-fly list. Yes, we have to get government agencies talking to each other across silos, and we need to have oversight of those two functions in order to make them work properly and protect people's civil liberties. But there are things that are good about this bill. They're buried in amongst some very sloppy language and some very worrisome omissions. And we think that if we can package it together and make those changes, the bill can strike the proper balance between public safety and protecting the public's civil liberties.
That raises a very good point. The government's proposed bill, the C-51, they're holding hearings on it right now, as I understand it. And in fact, they've had a list of witnesses, but they omitted the privacy commissioner from appearing before it. Now, your party has said that you'll support, in principle, C-51. Are you planning on bringing some amendments on the bill? And how would you improve this bill?
Well, first and foremost, parliamentary oversight. The Five Eyes, the intelligence partnership that sort of spans the English-speaking world with New Zealand, Australia, the United States, so on.
And England.
They all have parliamentary oversight of a committee of parliamentarians that review the new measures that are put in place, and to make sure that the communication is appropriate, to make sure that Canadian laws and the Charter is being obeyed. We're the only English-speaking country that doesn't have that, and we think that needs to be there. And modeled after the way in which the Australians in particular and the British have put together not a committee of parliament, but a committee of parliamentarians that has the capacity to investigate and to hold security forces accountable. That's the first thing we're looking for. And we actually have a private member's bill that's been introduced that actually tries to achieve this long before C-51 is even tabled. We'd hope that legislation could just go through, but the Conservatives are reticent to provide oversight. So that's one thing that needs to happen.
Now, your riding of Trinity Spadina represents a very ethnically diverse community. How have the comments by Conservative ministers on the issue of the niqab and others played out in your community? There's a concern out there that there's a division of us and them taking place among Canadians that will tear at the fabric of our community, of our cultural mosaic.
Yeah, and look at the riding includes a very significant neighborhood that has a large population of women who are members of Islam, who are Muslim, who choose and have the right to choose under our charter the ability to express themselves by wearing the hijab and some the niqab. It's a choice, and it's a choice that is made in the tradition of Canada, honoring and protecting religious freedoms. I think it'd be fair to say that Muslim women in particular are often the part of the Muslim community that bears the brunt of Islamophobia. And I think they have a reason not to feel safe because they are being stereotyped and they are being singled out by this Prime Minister. And their rights as women, as Canadians, is not being, I think, respected by a political party that again is trying to torque fear.
I'm reminded that there's a hashtag, not sure if I'm going to get it right, called Harper headwear, and it shows, a Catholic.
I think it's dress code PM.
Oh, dress code PM.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Where it shows people of different faiths wearing head covers, that are similar to a hijab. And
Margaret Atwood posted a picture of Queen Victoria.
yeah.
I think that says it all. You know, look at, we don't ask, reasonable accommodation is possible on this issue. You know, it's about freedom to choose. Women do have that right to choose how they express their faith. But there is, as you said, has been a sort of a poke back at the Conservatives, which is rather funny and humorous at times, where you had, I think there's a woman playing hockey who asked if it was okay if she could keep her goalie mask on when she represented Canada at the Olympics. There were all sorts of statements made back to the Prime Minister, that quite frankly, that he should stop worrying about what women dress, especially if he's not concerned about, for example, missing and murdered Indigenous women, where he does have a responsibility to protect people's charter rights, and he's silent. The fact that he gets all wound up in a tizzy around hijab or niqab and does nothing around that issue, he's not protecting women's rights to choose. He's not protecting women's right to live in peace and security. In fact, if anything, what he's doing is highlighting the hypocrisy sometimes inside his own government. Well, this is a very simple equation. And for the Liberal Party in particular, the Charter means something. And defending the Charter is critically important. It doesn't mean you abandon public safety. It's not the NDP's choice where they seem to suggest that it's the Charter or public safety. The Conservatives have exactly the opposite perspective. It's public safety or the Charter. We're, I think, a sophisticated enough society that you can have public safety and protect people's charter rights. And the Liberal Party is prepared to do both. Will we accomplish that with the hearings and the legislature that's in front of the House now? Highly unlikely. The Conservatives are not a party that is collegial or consensus building around these sorts of issues. But the good news is that before anybody really has to deal with some of these new laws, before they really come into full effect, there will be an election. We have an election coming. That election is not just a time to clear up Bill C-51. It's a time to change the direction of this country and move it back to a country that respects the Charter, respects Parliament, and uses the police for public safety, not for political ends.
Member, thank you so much for joining us. I'm joined by Liberal MP Adam Vaughan from Trinity Spadina. I look forward to having you back again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Up next, Mayor John Tory recently celebrated a milestone of 100 days in office. We'll discuss this with Now Magazine's City Hall reporter Ben Spur.